Unless this is your first visit to YouTube for many years, in which case welcome, thank you for choosing us, you'll be well aware that PUBG and Fortnite are taking over the world right now. You may be less aware, however, that Battle Royale games are nothing new. But for reasons we'll discuss in just a moment, right now they're riding a wave of overwhelming popularity. Multiplayer online survival arenas, or MOSAs as nobody calls them, are so big. Whether it's just because they're repeatable and accessible, because a whole generation grew up watching and reading the Hunger Games, or because it speaks to something deeper inside us, we'll be breaking down all the reasons we can't stop throwing ourselves out of planes in search of chicken dinners. Here are 7 reasons you can't resist Battle Royale games. We'll start with the big one. Many of the most popular shooters have a skill cap. Your success in the likes of CSGO or Call of Duty is largely determined by how good you are. You'll get a few lucky wins here and there, but for the most part, your level of success is directly related to your level of competence. Battle Royale games are slightly different. That's not to say there's no skill involved, far from it, otherwise we'd be winning more victory royales. But there are other factors at play. In Fortnite, for example, loot drops are random. You could jump out at Moisty Mire in one game and find nothing, and then get an arsenal of legendary weapons in the next. It's the same with PUBG. The same location could give you an assault rifle or a frying pan. Even brilliant players can lose either game if they're lucked out. The randomization is entertaining, and most importantly, it's fair. But does this really make a difference to why we keep playing? In short, yes, it does. Here's where we get to go a little deeper. The random element in these games elicits the exact same response we get when we gamble, and our brains love it. This is something we've covered in a previous video called the near miss effect. Our brains see borderline failures as successes and as a sign we should keep playing. We see this everywhere in games, especially in things like opening loot boxes, which again we've covered in a previous video. And it works the same way in PUBG and Fortnite. If we ranked 30th in a Battle Royale and only found uncommon weapons, our minds are telling us to have another go because next time things will be better. And if we feel like we're unlucky, we're actually more likely to try again. While the loot drops make it feel like you found them through your own endeavour, that random element on a subconscious level is telling you to keep searching for something better. It's like a fruit machine with shotguns. This one is less conceptual than the last, and it might seem like a bit of a chicken dinner stroke egg scenario. Battle Royale games are in the public eye line because of their rocketing popularity, which in turn introduces them to new people who wouldn't normally play online competitive titles. And the cycle repeats. Meanwhile, other new games like the Darwin Project are coming out, attempting to capitalise on their popularity. The stats surrounding these games make them feel even more like a cultural phenomenon. We apologise for trotting out the same numbers you've seen everywhere, but PUBG famously broke the record for concurrent players on Steam, with over 3 million people playing at the same time. Everyone who plays games was aware of the growing popularity of PUBG during 2017, and it's only natural to want to discover for yourself what all the fuss is about. And Fortnite goes even further. Rappers and pro footballers are spending their Saturday nights playing the game with famous streamers. On top of this, Fortnite is currently the most streamed game on Twitch, and it's easy to understand why. Survival games are extremely entertaining to watch, and PUBG has even added a broadcast mode allowing streamers to host their own Battle Royale shows. The long periods of quiet tension give streamers the chance to chat with their audience and build relationships, and the flashes of violence are exhilarating. And all this rubs off on us, of course, when we're surrounded on all sides by celebrities, streamers and friends diving into Battle Royale games. It's only natural that we'll want to give it a try as well. We share it on social media, we make videos about it, and in turn we become part of the hype machine. To oversimplify, Battle Royale games are popular because they're popular. Another reason you might be into Battle Royale games is because you grew up watching, reading, or even playing scenarios that are largely similar. As we mentioned in the intro, the concept of a grand battle for survival is nothing new, but the popularity of the concept has become embedded in the public consciousness over the last 10 years. The success of the Hunger Games is a useful example. By the time the film adaptation of Suzanne Collins' novel was released in March 2012, it had been on USA Today's bestsellers list for 135 consecutive weeks and had sold over 17.5 million copies. The films too have been a huge success. Right now, millions of people who experience this sort of story during their formative years are being given the opportunity to try something similar in a video game. Older audiences will be more familiar with Brendan Green's inspiration for PUBG, the dystopian action film Battle Royale. And even if the Hunger Games books or movies passed you by, there's a chance you experience something similar in the other big gaming cultural phenomenon, Minecraft. Hunger Games maps have always been a big deal in the Mojang blockbuster, and there's even an official Hunger Games called Battle Mode available on the console version of Minecraft. And why does any of this matter? Well, watching or playing any of the things mentioned isn't a guarantee that you're going to love Fortnite or PUBG, but it certainly won't hurt. If even a tiny fraction of the millions of people who watched the films, read the books or played the games are inspired to try something similar, then it's going to make a noticeable difference. On a more animalistic level, these types of survival games speak to something inside us. We're all hardwired to have a survival instinct, and the dog-eat-dog scenario of the solo modes in these games absolutely taps into that. Your desire to win a battle royale isn't just bragging rights or bravado, it's actually in your DNA. Whatever type of personality you are, there's something in a battle royale game that will appeal to you. If you're a risk-averse personality type, you'll be tempted to camp, creep about, and wait for that one moment to make the perfect shot. In fact, many of the top PUBG players do exactly this. And if you have a more aggressive, predatory personality, there's plenty of scope for hunting down other players and taking their stuff. Every method of play in these games speaks to the type of people we inherently are, in a way that straight up COD deathmatches never ever could. On a simpler level, we can't resist playing these games because they're immediate and they're repeatable. Both PUBG and Fortnite are built on systems that funnel you back in right away, so you rarely have to wait for another game. If you tie this back into our earlier entry about luck and the near miss effect, you can see why our brains always encourage us to keep playing after a bad game. And for a combative title, Fortnite is especially welcoming. Not in terms of the whole getting shot and robbed thing, more in terms of the way the game looks, the broad appealing selection of avatars, and the party atmosphere before each game. Even the music that plays on the battle bus makes it feel like you're on the way to a rave, rather than dropping into a deserted wasteland full of guns. And finally, for this entry, there's an element of these games feeling like they belong to us. They're successful because players have made it that way, and it can feel like a counterpoint to rigidly managed AAA releases. It might not feel like you're part of a community when you're riding a plane full of screaming strangers towards probable death, but there's still a sense that these games, and the players who enjoy them, are changing how the industry works. On a related note, the success of these titles shows us how games have evolved. Fortnite is a huge success because Epic is so willing to react to what people want. Their process is to interact with players all the time, listen to feedback, and iterate constantly. PUBG, likewise, had an amazingly short development cycle considering the size and scope of the game. Both titles then feel more like services than traditional releases, and this is something we've touched on briefly in a previous video about finishing games. And we're never going to finish games like this because obviously they never actually end. Instead, they show how the games industry might be moving away from long development cycles that guess what we'll want in 3 years to a constant updating feedback loop that listens to its audience. In short, you want to play games like Fortnite because you've told Epic exactly what you like and they work non-stop to implement it. And finally, let's finish with the most obvious entry of the lot. You can't resist playing something like Fortnite because it's free. This obviously doesn't account for the staggering success of PUBG, but it's hard to resist something that ticks all the other boxes we've mentioned when it costs no money to play. Of course, there are ways to spend cash in-game, but right now, Fortnite is technically still in early access. The question is, given the game's amazing success, how many players will pay for it when it's actually released? We're guessing it'll be quite a few. So there you go, 7 reasons you can't resist playing Battle Royale games. We hope you got to the end of the video without nipping off for a game of Fortnite. Please give us a like if you've been swept up in the Battle Royale fever, and subscribe to Logitech G for more weekly shows and features. Thank you very much for watching.